The mic is hot. Let's break this down. I I honestly don't even know where to start with this one. Usually when I sit down to talk to you, I have a plan. I have my notes. I have the data points all lined up in a row. But today I'm shaking. Physically shaking because I'm looking at a calendar. It's December 16th, and I'm realizing that in less than 10 days, by Christmas morning, the world is going to look completely different, and nobody is ready for it. You know, we always joke about backroom deals. We talk about it like it's a movie script. Oh, the elites are deciding our fate in a smoke-filled room. But what happened in Berlin over the last 48 hours? It wasn't a negotiation. It was a mugging. I need you to really hear me on this. They didn't send diplomats to Kyiv. They didn't send seasoned foreign policy experts who understand the history of Eastern Europe. Trump sent Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, real estate guys, developers, people who look at a sovereign nation, at a country where tens of thousands of people have died fighting for their homes, and they don't see a tragedy. They see a distressed asset. They see a property with a motivated seller that they can flip for a quick political profit. And the ultimatum they just handed Zelenskyy, it's cruel. There is no other word for it. They are giving him until Christmas. That's the deadline. Think about the twisted irony of that. Peace on earth, right? But the terms, God, the terms. They aren't just asking Ukraine to freeze the lines. They're telling Zelenskyy, and I've seen the leaked summaries, I'm not guessing here, they're telling him to pull his troops back, to walk away from the fortress belt in Donbas, to abandon the few defensive lines that are actually holding the Russians back. It's suicide. They are asking him to commit national suicide, and they're calling it a platinum security guarantee. Platinum. Can you believe the audacity? They put a marketing buzzword on a surrender document. And here is why my stomach is in knots. Here is why you should be terrified even if you couldn't find Donetsk on a map. Because if they can do this to Zelenskyy, if they can look an ally in the eye, an ally we promise to support for as long as it takes, and say, actually, we're bored. Sign this surrender or we cut you off completely. What makes you think they won't do that to Taiwan? What makes you think they won't do that to our own economy, to your pension fund? It's the precedent. The mask is off. There are no values anymore. There is only the deal. And if you are on the wrong side of the leverage, you get liquidated. Zelenskyy knows it. You can see it in his face in the clips coming out of Kyiv. He looks like a ghost. He knows he has 48 hours to choose between a civil war if he signs it or total annihilation if he doesn't. But, and this is the part that keeps me up at night, I think there's something else in that document, something worse than the land concessions. I saw a reference to a European enforcement mechanism, basically German and French troops on the ground. And if you connect that dot to what Putin said 3 days ago about foreign boots, we aren't preventing World War III with this deal. We might be signing the invitation. Stay with me. I need to walk you through exactly who was in that room and why the specific map they drew up, it doesn't make any military sense, unless the goal isn't peace at all. You ready? Okay, let's go backstage. Okay, look. To understand why this is happening now, why the urgency, why the Christmas deadline, you have to look at who was actually in the room. We aren't talking about seasoned diplomats here. We aren't talking about people who spent 20 years studying the Soviet Union or military strategy. The two men Trump sent to Berlin to negotiate the fate of 40 million people are Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Do you know who Steve Witkoff is? He's a New York real estate developer. He builds luxury condos. And Jared? You know Jared. He's the guy who tried to solve the Middle East with a PowerPoint presentation. These are guys who look at the world through the lens of a balance sheet. To them, a war isn't a tragedy, it's a distressed asset. It's like Imagine your house is on fire, the roof is collapsing, your family is trapped inside, and instead of a fireman, a guy in a tailored suit shows up and says, "Hey, I can put this fire out, but I'm going to need the deed to the master bedroom and the garage first." That is exactly what happened in Berlin yesterday. Now I know what the TV anchors are saying. I can hear them right now. Isn't peace better than war? Isn't it better to stop the killing? And yes, obviously, my God, nobody wants this war to end more than the Ukrainians. But you have to understand what they are actually trading away. They aren't just asking for land. They're asking for the industrial heart of the country. I did some digging into the geological surveys of the Donbas region, the specific areas Witkoff is telling Zelenskyy to abandon. It's not just dirt and rubble. It's lithium. It's titanium. It's the stuff that runs your iPhone, your electric car, the batteries of the future. We are talking about an estimated $11.5 trillion worth of critical minerals sitting under that soil. You seeing the pattern here? This isn't a peace treaty. It's a resource heist. Russia doesn't just want the territory for security. They want the bank vault. And the U.S. proposal? It basically says, let them take the vault and we'll give you a really nice alarm system for the empty house that's left. And that brings me to the villain of this story. It's not just Putin. It's the lie of the security guarantee. They're calling it Platinum Standard, Article 5-like. They're telling Zelenskyy, if you give up the land, we promise, we cross our hearts, that we will fight for you next time. Guys, we've seen this movie before. It was 1994, the Budapest Memorandum. Does that ring a bell? Ukraine had the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world. We told them, give up the nukes, and we promised to protect your borders. They did. They trusted us. And what did we do when the tanks rolled in? We sent blankets. We sent thoughts and prayers. Zelenskyy knows this. He's sitting across the table from Kushner, looking at this platinum promise, and he knows it's worthless. He knows that in 4 years, or 8 years if Russia attacks again, the U.S. Congress isn't going to vote to send your kids to die for a city in Eastern Europe that we already forced them to demilitarize. It's a paper shield. And they are asking him to trade real, defensible, concrete fortifications, the fortress belt around Pokrovsk, for a paper shield. And the worst part, the easy fix everyone is hoping for, this idea that Trump will just freeze it and we can all move on, it's a trap. Because once you validate that borders can be changed by force, you don't get peace. You get a world where every dictator with an army starts looking at their neighbor's map and thinking, hey, maybe I can get a Christmas deal too. Stay with me, because I need to explain how they are going to sell this to you. They're going to use a very specific economic trick to make it look like a win. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Takes a sip of coffee, looks directly at you. So how do they actually make this stick? Because that's the question, isn't it? How do you force a leader like Zelenskyy, a guy who became a global icon by saying, I need ammo, not a ride? How do you get that guy to sign a surrender document on Christmas morning? You don't do it with diplomacy. You do it with leverage. And the mechanism they are using is something I like to call the distressed asset foreclosure. Stay with me, because this is where the real estate background of Witkoff and Kushner becomes the only thing that matters. They aren't treating this like a war. They're treating it like a bad mortgage. Imagine you own a house, okay? It's a nice house, big yard, good location. That's Ukraine. But you have a neighbor, let's call him Vlad, who is, well, he's a psychopath. He crashes his truck into your living room one night, he sets up a tent in your kitchen, he starts eating your food, he claims the master bedroom is historically his because his grandfather slept there once in 1945. Now you call the police. That's the U.S., that's NATO, and for 3 years, the police have been handing you baseball bats through the window. They say, we can't come in, but here's a bat. Hit him. And you do. You fight like hell. You hold him to the kitchen, you stop him from taking the kids' rooms. But then, management changes at the police station. The new chief, let's call him Don, he looks at the budget, he looks at the cost of the baseball bats, and he sends 2 guys over. Not officers, he sends 2 insurance adjusters. They walk into your ruined living room, stepping over the glass, and they say, "Look, this is getting expensive. We have a deal for you. You are going to sign the deed to the kitchen and the living room over to Vlad. Legally. It's his now." And you scream, "What? He stole it. He killed my dog." And they say, "Yeah, we know, but if you sign the deed, we will give you this platinum security alarm for the rest of the house. It's top of the line. If Vlad tries to take the bathroom, this alarm will go off and, well, we'll see what happens. But you have to sign, today, or we stop sending the bats and Vlad takes the whole house by New Year's." That is the mechanism. It is a protection racket disguised as a contract. They are using the flow of weapons as the chokehold. Zelenskyy knows, and his generals know, that without U.S. artillery shells, the front line collapses in 14 days. Not months, days. The Russians have 10-to-1 artillery superiority right now in some sectors. If the U.S. supply chain cuts off on December 25th because Trump tweets "no deal," the Ukrainian army runs out of bullets. So the mechanism is pure, raw fear. It's holding a starving man over a cliff and asking for his wallet. Honestly, I almost feel bad for them. Almost, because Zelenskyy and his team painted themselves into this corner. They trusted the rules-based international order. They believed the speeches about democracy and freedom. They didn't realize that in the world of high-stakes real estate, which is what geopolitics has become, there are no rules. There are only owners and tenants, and Ukraine just found out they are a tenant. But let's zoom in on the platinum part, the security guarantee, because this is the shiny object they are waving in front of us to distract from the theft. I read the leaked details of this Article 5-like proposal, and I want you to pay attention to that suffix, like. It's like cheese food product. It's like leatherette. It looks real, but it's not real. A true Article 5 guarantee, the NATO standard, means that if one Russian tank crosses the new border, the United States Air Force is legally obligated to turn that tank into scrap metal within the hour. It's automatic. It's binary. But this proposal, it requires consultation. It requires congressional approval. Think about the U.S. Congress right now. Can you imagine them agreeing on anything in 24 hours? Can you imagine a divided Congress voting to declare war on a nuclear power because a Russian battalion crossed a line in a field in Donetsk? Of course not. And Putin knows that. Putin looks at this platinum guarantee and he laughs. He sees it for what it is, a polite suggestion, a delay tactic. And here is the pattern interrupt, the thing that really twists the knife. I know, it sounds like fiction. I wish it was. I wish I was just being a conspiracy theorist. But look at the map of the proposed demilitarized zone. They want European troops to patrol it, not Americans. They want Germans, French, British, Poles. Why? Because this is the subprime tranche. Go back to the mortgage analogy. The U.S. is the bank originating the loan, but they're selling the risk to Europe. If the deal goes bad, if the shooting starts again, it's going to be German soldiers in the crossfire. It's going to be French casualties. The U.S. gets the credit for making peace, but Europe takes the risk of the war restarting. It's brilliant in a sick Machiavellian way. Trump gets his photo op. He gets to say, "I stopped the war by Christmas, just like I promised." He gets the Nobel Prize nomination, but the mechanism he used creates a ticking time bomb, because here is the domino effect. This is how it falls apart. Domino 1. Zelenskyy signs on December 25th. He has to. He cites saving the nation from total destruction. The shooting stops, mostly. Domino 2, the internal collapse. You have hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian veterans who just lost their limbs fighting for land that was just given away with a pen stroke. They feel betrayed. The anger in Kyiv boils over. You start seeing protests, maybe even a coup attempt. The government destabilizes. Domino 3, the Russian regroup. Russia doesn't go home. They use the ceasefire to fix their tanks, train new conscripts, and build massive fortifications on the land they just won. They dig in, they make it permanent, and they wait. Domino 4, the test. 6 months from now, maybe a year, Russia tests the Platinum Guarantee. They send a rebel group or a paramilitary force, not the official army, to seize a village in the gray zone. Just one village. And then the world looks at Washington. Will we start WW3 over one village? No. We will condemn it. We will sanction some people. And just like that, the guarantee dissolves. The lock on the bedroom door breaks and the squatter moves down the hall. It is inevitable because the mechanism relies on trust. It relies on Russia trusting us trusting Russia, and Ukraine trusting both. And right now, there is zero trust. There is only leverage. Check swatch. Does that make sense? You seeing how the real estate deal structure is being applied to a war zone? It's clean on paper, it looks great in a PowerPoint deck, but on the ground, it's a recipe for a bloodbath that just gets delayed, not stopped. And if you think this doesn't affect you because you don't live in Kyiv, oh man, you are missing the biggest piece of the puzzle, because the economic fallout of handing $11 trillion in resources to our biggest adversary, that hits your wallet. That hits the price of everything you buy. Let me tell you what happens next, because the timeline is shorter than you think. Leans forward, voice drops to a whisper. Let me tell you what happens next, because the timeline is shorter than you think. And I'm not talking about 5 years from now. I'm talking about the next 6 months. The moment the ink dries on that document, probably around January, you are going to see a massive victory lap in the media. Stocks will rally. The S&P 500 will hit a new high because uncertainty is gone. You'll see headlines about the peacemaker president. But while everyone is celebrating the end of the shooting, the real cancer is going to start growing. Here's the reality. No one wants to say out loud. Russia isn't going to stop. They're going to pause. They're going to use this Christmas peace to rotate their troops. They're going to fix the thousands of tanks that are currently sitting broken in fields. They're going to build massive concrete fortifications along the new border, the one we just handed them. And they're going to mine the hell out of the demilitarized zone so that Ukraine can never, ever take it back. And inside Ukraine, it's going to get ugly. You have 500,000 veterans coming home, guys who lost legs, guys who lost their friends, and they're coming home to a government that just signed away the very land they bled for. You think they're just going to go back to their day jobs? No. We are looking at potential coups. We are looking at a state that fractures from the inside. And when Ukraine starts to wobble politically, Putin will say, "Look, they're a failed state. We need to go back in to restore order." And the cycle starts again. Only next time, the West won't help. We'll say, "Hey, we gave you a deal. You blew it." Now, zoom out. Look at the world in 5 years if this deal stands. We aren't just losing Donbas. We are losing the 21st century energy war. Remember those minerals I told you about? The lithium, the titanium? By 2030, Russia and China will likely control 60 to 70% of the global supply chain for high-end batteries and aerospace alloys. What does that look like for you? It looks like inflation that never goes away. It looks like you waiting 6 months for a car part because the factory in Ohio can't get the raw materials without paying a Moscow premium. It looks like the U.S. economy slowly suffocating because we gave away the keys to the engine room. And geopolitically, China is watching this Christmas deadline very closely. Xi Jinping is taking notes. He sees that the U.S. has a limit. He sees that if you just hold out long enough, if you just make it painful enough, the Americans will eventually fold and call it a deal. Taiwan is looking at this and trembling because they know they are next. The big brother advice. Sits back, takes a deep breath, drops the analyst voice entirely. Listen to me. I know this is heavy. I know you want me to tell you it's going to be fine, but I respect you too much to lie to you. The era of someone else will fix it is over. The platinum guarantee is a myth. The government isn't coming to save you. They're too busy negotiating the terms of the foreclosure. So what do? Tighten your circle. Stop arguing with strangers on the internet about politics. It's a distraction. Focus on your neighbors. Focus on your family. Build real physical connections. If the supply chains crunch again, your neighbor with a garden is worth 10 times more than your Twitter followers. Get real assets. If the dollar takes a hit because we lose our geopolitical standing, you don't want to be holding just paper. Learn a skill. Fix things. Build things. Own things that have utility. Watch the boring news. Don't watch the speeches. Watch the commodity prices. Watch the shipping lanes. That's where the real war is happening. If you see lithium spiking, you know the peace deal is working exactly as Putin planned. We are entering a new world. It's colder, it's harder, and the lines on the map are being drawn in pencil, not ink. Don't let them gaslight you into thinking this is peace. It's just halftime. Stay sharp, stay hidden. I'll see you in the comments.